Hello, everyone. It's Mark here from This Is the Music, and welcome back to another episode of the This Is the Music Meets Podcast, the podcast where I dive deep into the stories behind the rising and emerging artists from across the indie scene. Before we get on to today's episodes, please hit that like button and leave a comment because it really will help the podcast reach more people and support the bands that we feature. Joining me on episode 170 of the This Is the Music Meets podcast is a band with a huge story. From major label beginnings to a brand new chapter and a powerful new single called Another Way. Joining me on the podcast, it's All the Young. Ryan, first of all, welcome to the This Is the Music Meets podcast. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thank you. Yeah, really pleased that you're here and looking forward to discussing the new single and obviously the tour as well that you got coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of in the middle of it. We did Denmark. We did the Copenhagen show a few days back. It was great.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, and looking forward. Obviously, we'll get into the rest of those tour dates a little bit later on, but kind of like maybe for anyone discovering All the Young for like the first time, how would you, or maybe even rediscovering the band, maybe, how would you describe the band and kind of like your journey over the sort of the like sort of 15 years or so that you've been together?
I think we're kind of like the comeback story of you know the UK indie band trail, if you like. We kind of arced on a massive rocket into the sun. Then we crashed that back down to earth a little bit, and then we kind of slowly put it back together. When I look back, time flies, and it took us a while to get going again. But yeah, but the story is when we were in our early 20s, growing up in Stoke-on-Trent, we got a publishing deal with Good Soldier Songs, a quite significant one, and then we had a band called New Education then, and we're called. One of my songs is called New Education now. We basically got signed from MySpace, and we had. I miss MySpace. It's brilliant. It's like a mixture of SoundCloud and Facebook. I don't know why it was so effective, but it really was. And yeah, and then we got picked up on that, and we did some singles. Then we renamed ourselves because we were a bit scruffy. It wasn't really happening. And then we're a bit rough around the edges. We got a new drummer as well. And then, yeah, when things were looking a bit slicker, we got a massive record deal from Warner Brothers. It was 14th Floor Records, but it was like an arm of Warner. And that kind of that was it. Then we were at the big time, and we went to the NME Awards twice. We went to the Brit Awards. We recorded with Chris Potter, who did the Verve Urban Hymns. Where we recorded with Garth Richardson, who did Biffy Clyro stuff and Rage Against the Machine. Went all over the world. Didn't go to America that much. Went to Seattle once. Went to Canada a lot. Went to Australia. Toured Australia. Spent lots of time in Canada recording. Toured all over Europe. It's brilliant. And I think the kind of budgets we got, I think we were expected to break the top 20 with our album. We finished at 41. So it's a top 100 album that I'm very proud of, but we were one outside the top 40 as well. Do you know as well, the amount of records we sold something like 15,000 in our first week. That'd be a number one now, that would.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
it's quite scary in a way. How the obviously I know you just touched on MySpace, kind of like a streaming site in
Yeah.
some aspects. But yeah, if you think now that pretty much everybody consumes music digitally,
Yeah.
rather than cassettes or
Yeah.
mini discs were probably still around at that point. I think possibly my memory serves me right, obviously CDs and
Yeah.
obviously vinyl as well. So yeah,
Well,
quite incredible, really.
Spotify had just been launched when our album come out. So Spotify was a thing, and so was iTunes. So, record sales had been hit, but we were kind of given, I think, and we're seen as one of the last bands to get that kind of deal. Um, So I mean, and then what goes up must come down. We got dropped from a deal, and then you know when I look back on it, probably lived off my own name, and like I didn't pay for many drinks in Stoke. I think I got I'd go from party to party. Yeah, I'm Ryan from All the Young. It's very easy to get addicted to that stuff.
Yeah.
uh, and then 2 years have gone past. We're still writing the record. We still got quite a bit of the money in the bank. And then my brother, who I formed the band with, he became a dad. The drummer, he was just getting a bit tired of it. Driving around in a van, playing gigs and stuff. It does take its toll on you. It's not all it's the
Mhm.
most fun you can have in the world. Listen, I'm not playing it down at all, but it can take its toll on you mentally. And then before you know it, 4 years have passed, and we're all doing different things. I started a new band called Faraday, and we did a few EPs and started making a bit of a name for ourselves. But basically, people were just coming to the shows and asking us to play all the young songs, and me kind of snobbishly, I guess. When I look back on it, I was refusing to do them, and then we had a friend pass away, and we did a big mental health show like for Mind, and we raised about 8 grand for Mind, and we put this big festival on, and we played as Faraday, and then we did like a special All the Young ensemble at the end,
Mhm.
and the place went bananas, like, and we all kind of looked at each other and went, okay, we need to, this is what the people want, these songs. And it was, you just get that. That was everything happens for a reason, and that was the moment. And then, yeah, we started releasing music again in 2019. Sometimes I sell myself short and say there's 10 years between the albums, but we started again in 2019, was after about 6, 7 year break. And then in 2022, we released our second album finally. Some of them songs have been sat on for ages, and here we are again. We're about to do the third album, and the fans are still there. It's great.
Yeah, definitely. Just obviously we touched on MySpace there. Obviously sort of like late 2000s, early sort of 2010s sort of period. With when you got that sort of publishing deal that you mentioned there, had you had quite an established like fan base already? Is that how you got discovered, or was it, simply, which is some of the things that I always used to do was, well, I've just, sort of stumbled across a band, and then the next thing I know, I like them, right? And they, got in contact with you. How did it work?
So we had a bit of a name in Stoke, but we were selling like 75 tickets for a gig, and we were. I knew we had something. I mean, I always thought we were good. I thought I was the best thing in the world when I was 15. So, as you do, you wouldn't do it unless you did. And then, but I really started to feel like we had some songs. And then, yeah, we had the three best songs. We did this one demo in Liverpool in the Lipper, and it's with a guy named Rich Turvey, and he's doing Blossoms and the Coral. And we were like one of the first bands he recorded as part of his coursework. And now he's a full-fledged producer. He's got a proper career and everything. And yeah, he did a demo with us, and I remember thinking, this is wicked. And we put on MySpace, and we started picking up fans. We did a few out of town shows and stuff, and then yeah, we just started getting. We got messages from Parlophone, Universal, and Warner Brothers. It's crazy.
Wow.
So I'm like, I've got my pick here, but the Warner Brothers one was they were very serious and very hot on, and they came to Stoke. They came to the practice room and watched us rehearse. This is the story of All the Young. Basically, the guitarist at the time as well. He quit right when Warner Brothers. So we had to get our mate Dave to play guitar, and he knew about 5 songs, and the song that he knew the least, they were like, play that one. That's the one we like, and we all went, uh-oh. Yeah. But then we played it, and we must have done just a good enough job, because they took us to the nearest pub basically and just said, "We want to sign you." And yeah, it's brilliant. There was some of the early songs. We got a song called "Today," and that was up there, and that's always been like that was the beginning of it all, and that's heart on your sleeve, indie pumper that is. So yeah, it was just the strength of the songs to answer the question, I think.
Yeah, yeah, sure, okay. And kind of like then with that debut album, Welcome Home, what do you remember most about, making that record?
I remember, like, because we were doing it with Chris Potter, and we did 3 singles with him, and I really liked recording with him because it's the sound of the Verve, and it was. If you listen to some of the old versions, it's got all the Ashcroft style delay, like the. Do you know there's a song? What is it called? This time on Urban M's, and he's going
Yeah,
in a light, light, and he's doing all that with my voice, and I was like, yes, man, this is brilliant. But the label, they threw this curveball and said, we want to send you to Canada to record with Garth Richardson, and you know, it was a strange fit, and some people even said in the reviews, further down the line, it was a strange fit, but. I just remember being like, Canada, really? That's incredible. So we just went for it. And to be honest, as much as I think we're slightly different creatively, he's one of my favorite people in music. Garth is. I loved working with him, and he taught me so much in the studio, especially about harmonies. And he's an absolute tuning. Uh, yeah, he's a tuning fascist, we'll call him, because like he'll make you play the guitar 16 times because it's slightly out of tune, and it's just very high level professionalism. And they sent us to Brian Adams' studio, the Warehouse in Canada. They sent us to the Armory, Bruce Fairbairn's place, where AC/DC and Nirvana did some of Nevermind and I was just completely bowled over by what was going on. I was just like, wow. But also felt really, yeah, you know, really up for it, and just really happy that that's what we were doing. And but then it did take a while because some of the versions we were sending back they didn't like because there was a point where we started sounding a bit like a pop punk and we do kind of like Blink 182 and stuff like that.
Mm.
That's in our locker. We have got a bit of pace to us and we do like punky music and we were starting to sound a bit like that. But we finally got the result, and it was just yeah, brilliant time to be honest. And I remember feeling very fulfilled the fact that I was there doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely, and some obviously massive names there in terms of the studios that you just mentioned. Also, Sport, did you have all of the songs written for the album? Like when you went in to do the recording of it, or did you record? Sorry, did you write anything? When you was in the studio, and did that being signed with being part of Warner Brothers, did that change the approach from what you'd done? Previously.
Yeah, there was 2 pressure points. Like we nearly lost all the deal and everything we'd written Today, and then we were sending them these songs and they didn't like them, and then I wrote Here to Stay, and they loved that, and that turned everything around just on a sick. Yeah, I remember their eyes lighting up, and I was just like, okay, they like the big rock songs. And they helped me unlock that in myself because at the time I was writing pretty, up indie, you know, catchy songs, but not really the old the young sound. And then in when we were making the record, I thought we'd finished it, and they just came out with, "We think you need one big song. We need to think you need one more big song." And my my best friend at the time, while we were making the record, passed away tragically. And I remember I was in a real mess, like, and I had to have a little bit of time off, and I had a lot of anxiety, and I didn't feel very good. And then I was listening to Aerosmith, "Dream On." That dream with me, dream, dream, dream,
Yeah.
dream for the love. And I remember just thinking, we need a song like that. Uh, and that was then the Horizon came out, and and I wrote it about my friend, and I remember the whole world stopping, and I remember thinking, we've got something here, and the label loved it, and then that was it. Then they signed the album off, then, and yeah, it was. But yeah, there's these 2 moments where if we hadn't done the song that we had to at that time, who knows, the whole thing could have been cancelled.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I can only imagine the sort of kind of, I guess, how anxious you all would have been, and sort of like, I guess, the sort of associated stress
Yeah,
that probably would have come with that. Everything that you'd been working up towards.
Yeah.
at that point. But just sort of fast forwarding on really to the second album, Tales of Grandeur, obviously come out in 2022, as you said earlier. And this time, obviously, you was with Scruff of the Neck
Yeah.
records of the up in Manchester for those that aren't aware of those guys. But how then did the experience of recording with sort of like an indie label in comparison to a major label, was it the same sort of pressures and sort of time constraints, or was it a little bit more relaxed with Scruff of the Neck?
There were time constraints because of the vinyl shortage that happened around COVID. So we had to kind of, I mean, we did get in a bit of a mess with the release. Now, when I was on Warner Brothers, I always wanted to be on an indie label because we have a bit more creative control on an indie label. I haven't got anything bad to say about Warner because they treated us good. They didn't rip us off. In fact, they overspent on us. But if anything, they wasted money on us. But when we were on Scruff, I always wanted to be on an indie label and having more creative control. But there were times when I felt like I had too much creative control, and I wanted somebody to give me a clip round the ear, and say. So I guess life's all about balance. So it was very different, yeah. But it was nice to have that experience after the big pressure cooker that was Warner Brothers.
Yeah, sure. And obviously now you are sort of self-releasing, singles and all of that sort of stuff. So you just mentioned there that maybe sometimes you felt that the independence maybe wasn't necessarily a good thing, but how do you feel now about having, I guess, full control over, everything from, the actual writing, the recording, and then, the other aspects of it now, obviously with social media, we obviously all know how much, how important that is for bands. So yeah, how do you feel now about having that sort of total independent control?
It's like I haven't got, lots of people end up in situations where, you know, they get away from a label and they just, you know, there's bad things to say. There's things that I didn't like, there's things that I did like. But at the end of the day, I think all the youngs in a place now. Yeah, we're all the not so young these days, and we've been around the block, and we are actually quite hard to manage. We've got a guy managing us now, off-axis management, Paul Kirkley, and
Yeah,
he does it in
great guy.
yeah, he does it in the right way because he knows we know what we're doing, so he lets us do it. But every now and again, he just throws something in front and just says, "Think about this," and Paul gets it, to be fair to him. But we can be. I think we were difficult for Scruff of the Net because we had all the Warner history. We were difficult for Warner because we were wet behind the ears. But now we've got all this experience. I think it's like the perfect set to do this next bunch with just a bit of distribution and and self-release it. And then I said to it, I was doing an interview the other day. I said I've got a major label, an indie label, and a self-release. I've completed rock and roll. I've done it. Got the full set.
And there aren't many people that can say that, to be fair.
Yeah.
If any. So obviously your brand new single, Another Way, came out last week, the 6th of March. And it is one of all the Young's most sort of like honest and sort of like emotionally powerful tracks that you've done so far. Obviously, Tom Compton, the band's guitarist, obviously said that this song is about overcoming addiction and
Yeah.
sort of the moment, that you realise that you need to sort of, maybe do things differently. So, what was it like, turning such a sort of deeply, personal sort of song or theme, I should maybe say, into a song? How did the approach go for the band?
It was, I mean, we just did the song like we did anything else. We did recognize that we needed something darker. We've got a couple of moments on the first album. There's a song called Arcane,
Hmm.
and that's always been a fan favorite, but we've only ever made one of them. And then, we're very good at that jangly, uplifting, happy, big chorus sound. And then there's a few moments, there's a song called Freddie's Freedom on the second album. And the second Tom came with this one, the band was like, that's the song we need. And then also, since it's been done, I asked Tom to do the press release because I was like, "You wrote the lyrics, Tom. You write the press release." Well, Paul helped as well, but the original text came from Tom, and he wrote this really honest thing, and I was like, "You know what? We're never this honest. We never talk about life's dark times, and you know anyone can fall into you can fall into gambling addictions, TV addictions. Just you can get yourself in all. It doesn't have to be drinking drugs and stuff like
Hmm.
that." But when he way he wrote it, I was like, "This is that's how honest we need to be as a band now, because you know, we're we're all in good places, and I think you know, we can and we should talk about stuff like that, and if it helps other people or if people can relate to it, even better.
Yeah, sure. When you're saying that, are you saying about being honest? Is that like within the band with each other, or is that sort of within like the press releases essentially being honest
Yeah,
that the song is about X, whatever that may be?
yeah, I think because like today is a little bit about pulling yourself out of that kind of thing. I mean, I used to party a little too hard when I was younger, but I used to,
Nothing
I
wrong
get,
with that at all.
yeah, and I think I used to shy away from talking about it. So sometimes the band has written songs, quite powerful songs, and we've not really told people the story. Where I think now we're telling people the story a bit better, and that's in my writing. We've got a song called "Billionaire" coming up next, and it's about everything that's going on in the world now and it's not even political because what it touches on that there's an element to us all where we hate these billionaires and we're like, and they annoy us and but they take up so much of the thing, but there's a little element of us all that's a little bit jealous of them as well, and that's what the song's about, it's about, and I think we're really touching something now because we're getting into the nitty gritty, and I think, yeah, it's long may it continue.
Yeah, no, definitely, wholeheartedly agree with that. Obviously, whenever a band releases a new single, there's always like a moment. I'm guessing. I've never done it, obviously, of like maybe wondering what people are gonna, think of the song, either
Yeah.
reviewers or whatever, or fans. So, from your perspective, and maybe like speaking on behalf of all the young as well, what has the reaction been like? Have you been surprised by it, or really pleased with what the reaction's been like?
It's been brilliant. I've had people who I think, like, I've had a few friends who are probably who I've always thought they've lost interest in my band. I've been in that lad in that, I've known them for 20 years and they've turned around to me and gone, "Oh, I like that," because and I think it's woken everyone up a little bit. Um, the fan base really like it. There was one guy in Copenhagen who absolutely loved it, and then there was another guy who didn't like it. So that was quite. But the Danes, they're famous for being really honest. The Danes are. So yeah, I thought it was quite funny. But then yeah, it's we needed to do this. I think if we released like we did something more in November, I think if we did that again, it's a bit like, oh, here comes all the young with their big jingly Sally Cinnamon style choruses. Here we go again, and this was the song we needed to put out, I think. So it's had a great response, and yeah, looking forward to doing more.
Yeah, definitely, and sort of sticking with sort of new music because since February 2025, you've obviously put out four singles, which is pretty prolific run of singles really. So is this building towards something bigger? You're looking maybe at like an EP or an album at some point, maybe like later on this year, or maybe looking ahead to 2027, which seems mad saying that out loud, to be honest.
I know.
2027.
And then and then you think it's not even that far away, is it?
No.
It's mad. The story of it is the two singles from 2025. We were kind of ready to do the album then, but then we've changed producers from Andy Gannon, who that's who we did the second album with. No bad words to say about Andy. He was with Scruff. Now he's on his own. He's working with Kyle Faulkner and Pete Doherty, and it was a scheduling thing. He couldn't fit us in. We were and if we were chomping at the bit, ready to go. And then we got in touch with Gaz Nuttall, who's done the K's and Lottery Winners,
Mhm.
and it's clicked with Gaz really quickly because Andy's very much like, okay, let's tear the song to pieces, and then where Gaz is like, let's play the song as a band, and we're almost like playing a gig in his studio, you know.
Right.
And Gaz is, we're starting to sound like we do live with Gaz, which is something the band's been very guilty of this in the past, where we polish things up too much in the studio. The Enemy said it about the first album, I think a little bit unfairly, but I do get where they were coming from. And yes, and we've kind of got the perfect balance. So the two singles came out, and then we had all that drama, and then we had to change producers, and which we really didn't want to do, and we were really nervous about doing. So it's kind of the whole process has started again. The two songs we did with Andy are probably going to be on the release, but we've got another four pretty much ready now. And then we'll probably make two more, and then I think we'll put the whole thing out as either an EP or an album. We just got to decide what songs go on it. And that'll be either late this year or early 2027, as you said. We'll just say next year. We won't say what year it is.
Brilliant. And sort of just so I know you've said there like no bad words with any of the producers that you've worked with, across all the young, but I just found that quite interesting there where you said, that one Andy there's got you sort of stripping back everything, and then obviously then everything gets built up, and
Yeah,
then Gaz there essentially Gaz getting you to
yeah.
then play it live. How have you found like the difference in approach? Is that have you had a preference towards which way it's worked, or
I
or
would say
not? Or are you quite happy with either way?
I'm happy with both. I would definitely say that the band are happier working with Gaz because Mike is in there smashing his drums, dead loud. He's in there from the off. It's not like we're building a little song and then he comes and plays along to it, you know. So for band harmony, and Gaz has really reignited the flame and the rest of the lads. I'll be honest with you, me and Tom really liked working with Andy because we would do these little two-man sessions on the song. And so, for example, a prime example is Bad Blood that we did last year. That's with Andy, and that's like it built the song from the ground up. And then this another way, we're all slamming it in the studio. So, to be honest, I think they make a really good team. To be honest, I think if they were both together. But they're both doing their own thing and, working in, they've both got their own studios and their own clients. So if someone can give me about 100 grand, I'll get them both together, pay them both, and then we're laughing. If anyone's listening who wants to do that.
Brilliant. There you go. We'll have to get like a GoFundMe page going on,
Yeah,
maybe.
there's the pitch.
You heard it. You heard it here first with this the music. Obviously, Brian, you just kicked off a 6 date sort of tour to promote the new single. You obviously started in Copenhagen, and you're going to be heading over to Derby, Stoke, London, Manchester, and Edinburgh as well. First of all, how was the opening night in Copenhagen?
Yeah, it was brilliant. There was, yeah, very close to being sold out. So it was a really busy crowd. Uh, I've got two stepdaughters who came along, and it was mad seeing them in the crowd. And they've come before, but one's 18 and one's 16 now, and they had cocktails in their hands, and I was just like, wow. But it was nice to see them, enjoying it, and we've got a good little crowd in Denmark now. The story of the bands, when I meet people, they're super interested in it. Yeah, the word's getting out about us over here. So yeah, it was. There's a video on the Instagram. Everyone's got their arms in the. We've got a ballad called "City of Love" that's about Copenhagen. It's the soppiest song I've ever written, but Denmark loves it because it's about Denmark. So yeah, it was nice, nice energy to start. Yeah,
Yeah, and kind of like how are you looking forward to the rest of those tour dates that just mentioned?
Derby, is going to be brilliant. We're playing at Mr. Shaw's house, which is actually
Ah, yes.
it's a clothes shop, but it looks really decent, and lots of the Derby indie scene are playing in there. the venue Vines closed down. This is happening. It happened. We had some difficulties with the venue in Hartlepool as well. It's tough out there, but I'm glad we kept the gig on. It will be slightly stripped back in Derby, but we'll still be doing a stonking set. Stoke, we're playing at the Rigger, which is a legendary rockers place.
Right. Okay.
And Spear of Destiny and the Damned and all these bands have played there. And we did an acoustic show there with the singer of Gomez, and we were like, we should get the band in here and blow it to pieces. It's got a really good rig, and it's always been like the rockers place the Rigger has, and I can't wait to play it like as a It's because when we play in Stoke, we do all the big venues, and we needed to do something different, like something with a bit left field this time. So that's why we're doing the Rigger. And people, it'll be it's almost sold out, the Rigger is, so it'll be brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great to hear. What about touring? Is it that you like, doing, no, you mentioned at the start of the episode about, maybe like the mental side of it, that obviously clearly not everyone gets to see that. So what is it about touring that you and the band are like, yeah, do you know what? Come on, let's get back out on the road and go and show everybody what we're about.
The camaraderie is great because it's the time on stage, but it's the time in the van as well, going from venue to venue, and you get a lot of stuff figured out on tour. I mean, especially now. I mean, three of us are dads and all the young now. We've got different, you know, diff different time schedules, and when we're together in the van and playing the gigs, you know, things get done properly, and everyone's like looking out for each other. It's rough and ready on the road, even on like bigger tours that I've been on with like sleeper buses and stuff like that. Even if you're in the nicest hotels, it's still you're still up against it, up against the elements, and you're having late nights, you're eating bad food, you've got to watch yourself, and it's exciting, and you start getting blisters on your feet and on your fingers and all this, and and then everyone's it's great. I mean, I could live on the road, I really could. It's a kind of I'm buying a house next year, and it's like it's taken me to be like almost 40 to be able to do that. I think they say some birds aren't meant to be caged. That's definitely true with me. But it's cheesy, but just life on the road, it is good, and it's not. We don't tour as long as we used to, but we play all our good cities, and yeah, it's a nice reminder the fans are still there, and there's less pressure as well. But when you're in the studio, you're a bit more pressured. When on the road, that's the reward, that's the payoff.
Yeah, no, sure, definitely, and sort of sticking with the live theme of all the young have shared some stages with some brilliant artists over the years. Morrissey, Kaiser Chiefs, Hardfire, and the Pigeon Detectives as well. Any sort of particular like sort of standout memories being on tour with any of those guys?
Uh, it was funny. There's a funny thing happened when we played with the Twang. You'll like this one.
Right, okay.
Right. So we play. We're setting up in Glasgow, and this is when we were called New Education, and we are proper young when we did this. And someone tells me in Glasgow they like to throw beer. They throw beer on the stage. So
Right.
and now, bearing in mind, it was one of the crew who told me this. Now we haven't even got our own crew. We've just got us. So we go on stage, and in our fourth song or something, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I say down the mic, I hear Glasgow likes to throw beer on stage, while I'm stood here dry as a bone. And honestly, about 45 pints of beer just come flying from the audience, because it was at Glasgow Uni, so it's a big room.
Yeah.
And the Twang's tour crew went mental. They were like, "What are you doing?" And they came on with the towels, and I went back and Phil and the lads and John from the Twang, they were pissing themselves. They thought he was hilarious. But yeah, we weren't. The crew weren't best mates with us after that. Let's put it that.
Yeah, you can sort yourselves out from here on out.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
And kind of like then as well, did you ever think, being on those tours and obviously, those artists that I mentioned and also the twang as well, was there ever a moment that you thought, do you know what? Yeah, this is happening. This is, we're going to break through, sort of
Yeah.
to the next sort of level, so to speak, if that makes sense.
I mean, the thing with what I've realised with all the young is we're kind of like the kings of the toilet venues. We always have been. We can go to Manchester, do 200 tickets or 300 on a good night, or and we could do the same in London. And if we really get on it in Stoke, we can have 500 in a room going mad. Birmingham and Bristol is good for us. And if that's all we've got, that's all we've got. There was a moment when we were kind of at the peak of our powers, and we did 1,000 in Stoke, and but it's the same with the twang now. The twang, it's peaks and troughs.
Hmm.
Sometimes, like something will happen at one of those twang shows, and they'll be absolutely massive, and then, the twang will just be, doing their thing. You've just got to ride the wave, I think. 2 years ago, it felt like it was going quiet for us, and then recently it's really picked up again. So you just got to ride the wave. I do think I like to always think it's ahead of us. I think we've got a song in us that can really, uh, you know, penetrate in a way that the others haven't yet. And I think we're being a bit more honest. But I'm just very grateful for, I've played to the sound man, and the bar guy cleaning up before. So to have a few hundred of your own fans in a room is just brilliant. And so I sound like one of those old tour dogs. I've seen it all in this game. But I have seen a lot, and there's been times when I've wanted to take that next step up where we're doing academies all over the country. But we've had sold out rooms singing our songs, between 200 to 500 to 1,000, or in Europe, all over the UK, and I feel very grateful for that. I think it's amazing, and I just need a Mercedes advert now, mate, to pay the bills, and then and then I'm happy.
But then I guess though, from what you were just saying there, though, Ryan, is that you're clearly you love music.
Yeah,
It's fairly obvious, but you're obviously still trying to chase that
yeah,
one song. You obviously feel that it's still. I've
yeah,
heard people say, they fall down from the sky. You have
yeah,
to grab it quick. So I guess that's kind of like what you're sort of saying, what you're, or the band as well, clearly,
yeah.
but that's what you're working towards.
Yeah, and like I've wrote a couple of songs about my daughter recently, and I'm like, maybe this is the one that's going to connect. Me sitting in my spare room in my mum's house. Maybe when I'm 19 years old, maybe that wasn't the moment. Maybe the moment is when I you know get in this new house and start living life and appreciating things. Maybe that's when I write the song. So who knows? I like just take each day at a time, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, sure, okay. On every This Is the Music Meets podcast, I sort of like to finish with a quick fire round. But I should warn you that this first question definitely isn't quick fire. So I put a little tag, a little warning message out there. Obviously, we were chatting off air beforehand, and obviously, I knew already that you're obviously a Port Vale supporter. The league season has been a little bit up and down, and maybe not going too good. But obviously, you beat Sunderland in the FA Cup at the weekend, and you've got Chelsea as a Chelsea away as a reward in the cup quarter final. Yeah, what's the thoughts on the season, and kind of like, has that win from beating Sunderland and then the subsequent draw, has it sunk in yet that Port Vale are, not just beating Premier League teams but competing with them, and have got a nice reward for the next round?
Yeah, it's we definitely needed it. It's not been a nice season, and this is what Port Vale do. Honestly, just when you think I've fed up with this, I've had enough. I'm not watching this rubbish anymore. They go and do something like this, and they just turn it all around for you. So I'm in some of the WhatsApp groups I'm in with some of the fans. Oh, I've had to mute them at times. I've been like, oh my days, and that's because of me, not because of them. I'm just getting dragged in. And but yeah, it's brilliant. I saw the fixtures, just the last four fixtures of the quarterfinals, and all the teams, and then Port Vale's name just in amongst them. I thought, do you know what? Because we've had a terrible season, say ups and downs. It's been mainly downs, and for some reason we're making the jump between League Two and League One look like, Serie B to top of Serie A or something, and it shouldn't be that way, but it's gone the way it's gone. And we look very solid under John Brady, the new manager. We'll finish the rest of the season solid. I'm not sure we'll get enough points to stay up. But my wife's a Chelsea fan.
Right. Okay, that could be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And when we met, she was glad I was a Port Vale fan because she's mad about football. My wife is as well. She's not casual at all, and it's quite common in Denmark to have two teams. So she's FC Copenhagen and Chelsea because they watch the English teams in the winter during the winter break here. So, yeah, and there's a Chelsea fan bar here. See, I'm not because it's at the end of the tour. I'm not sure I can go to the Chelsea Vale game, but I might go to this Chelsea fan bar with my Vale shirt on and see what these Danish Chelsea fans are saying. Get right amongst them.
Well, it's a good bit of content at the very least.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should film that. Yeah, yeah.
Would love to see it. Love to be there as well, actually, to see that happening. Probably quite a difficult one, to be fair. One album that every indie fan should own.
For me personally, the rest of the lads might say something different. Tom loves the War on Drugs. I'll just let him. That is a big War on Drugs head, the guitarist, and Tom's. He's wrote a few of the songs, so I'll just give that a shout. But for me personally, everybody in the world should own Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks, because it's the best breakup album ever. He wrote it just after his divorce. It's the best album ever, I think. I never used to like those lists that this is the best album ever, but when I first got into Dylan, that changed my life. That did, and that record especially. It's incredible songwriting. So yeah, I'll go with that one.
There you go. Okay, brilliant. Can you remember maybe the best gig that you've ever played?
Best gig we've ever played. The biggest one was the King's Hall back in 2012, and that was a real moment. But I think I'm a late developer. I was a machine when I was in my 20s. I was just doing everything. It was all going in my stride, and I didn't let much of it faze me. But we did Manchester night and day on the last tour, and there's about 150 people in there, so it was close to being sold out. It was really nice and full. And we came on and we played really well. And this is in the new lineup, the new All the Young Marks II. And we played today, and the place started going nuts. And I had tears in my eyes. I did, and I was just like, because we did Night and Day in 2011, and there I am in 2025 doing this gig, and everything's changed in my life, and I've got family and all this, and it just hit me again, and I was just like, you're still doing it. You're lucky to still be doing this. And honestly, I was behind my sunglasses looking like Mr. Cool. I'm like blobbing up like,
Brilliant. I love that. What a story. Love that.
Yeah.
Probably not so much the crime bit, obviously, but just the moment. I can imagine what that may have been like.
Yeah, it was great. So it was nice cozy gig in Manchester, but it meant a lot to me personally. So.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And then kind of like on the flip side of that, what's like the most chaotic tour story that you can remember?
Do you know, I've talked about this. I'm talking about this a lot at the minute, but I think I should. It's me when Morrissey came to watch us at London Proud Gallery, right? We'd just been signed, and there was rumours he was coming to watch us because he was friends with one of our team at Warner. And she was like, say now Morrissey's going to come to your gig. And we were all like, yeah, whatever. And then there was a load of Port Vale lads came down to the gig on a bus, and we helped him. We bought him crates of beer and everything. And, we thought, get down here, you'll be mental. And one of them come running past the dressing room, my mate Johnny Mansfield, and he said, Ryan, Jim Morrison's at your gig, mate. And I was like, well, he's been dead 30 years, mate, so I don't think Jim Morrison's at the gig. But there he was, Morrissey, and he came backstage afterwards, and he was very like, hello, Ryan, wonderful concert, but you're very sweaty. And he ran rings around me, to be honest, and it kind of did me head in and all this. And I was like, but then he offered us a gig, so I didn't know where I stood with him. And then we got to know him a bit more, and then I did some media stuff with him. But yeah, being on stage with a load of Port Vale fans getting mad in the crowd, and then Morrissey stood at the back of the. That's a pretty mad memory to answer the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, and what a contrast as well there in the two sort of scenarios there as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Chaotic and maybe sort of like a calm
yeah,
sort of process as well going on there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Obviously, as we touched on a little bit earlier on, and just there as well, actually, obviously, all the young have supported some great bands and sort of artists, across the sort of like 15 years or so that you've been together. But if there was any band that you could support right now, who would it be?
I think we do a really good gig with DMAs. I like DMAs a lot. I love that. I saw DMAs in the Sugar Mill in Stoke, and there's about 100 people there. And then I'm one of them. They started getting really big, and I'm like, oh, I'm not bothered anymore. You know? But, no, I think DMAs would be a great gig. And I don't want to say the obvious like Oasis or anyone. No, I'll go DMAs. I think what they've done for kind of the next generation of indie music, and they've engaged a lot of people into guitar music. I think so. I'd love to do a gig with them.
Brilliant. There you go. And what's next then for all the young in 2026? Are you a sort of band that likes to, we've got to do this by this month, that by that, or is it just sort of we just like to wait and see what happens?
Well, we are doing a festival in Stoke. There's a new festival that's happening called Foundry Festival, and we're going to play that on May the 3rd. It's in Hanley. It's in a part of town that's needs a bit of love, but there's some great lads who've got a load of funding from the council and stuff like this, and they're putting this festival. And like it might sound not such a big deal, but in Stoke this is a big deal because this kind of stuff just doesn't happen. We're not. It's not like Sheffield. It's not like Manchester. It's not like Glasgow where you've got things going on in the parks. There's small things popping off here and there, but to see these lads, Lee Barber and Rich Buxton, and all of them put this festival on is brilliant. So we'll be playing that, and then we're back in the studio with Gaz to finish the tracks, and then I think maybe some shows in late 26 or 27. Oh, I said it again. Well, yeah. And then yeah, I think after this record, after this next batch of songs, we might go on not a hiatus, but a writing retreat. My new house is by the sea, you see, so I'm going to write my meditation album's coming next. All serenity. I'm going to go Richard Ashcroft and start singing to the Lord and all this. Yeah, so
Brilliant. Love that. Sitars everywhere.
yeah, just
I'm
like
picturing it already.
yeah, the deadlines are gone then. Yeah.
Brilliant. I love that. Look, Ryan, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of episode 170 of the This Is the Music Meets podcast. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories behind all the young and obviously the brand new single as well, Another Way, which is out now on all streaming and download platforms as well. But I wish you and the band all the luck in the world and continued success as well with the tour that you've got coming up, and obviously everything else that you've got coming up across 2026 and into 2027 as well. I'll certainly be keeping my eye out and yeah, looking forward to seeing what's happening for you guys next.
Thanks very much, Mark. You're a gent. Thanks for having us on, and everyone for listening.
A massive thank you to everyone for watching and listening the latest This Is the Music Meets podcast. If you're new round here, make sure you subscribe so you never miss out on the brand new episodes. And if you're enjoying this episode, please hit that like button and leave a comment, as I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon for another This Is the Music Meets podcast. And remember, the future is bright. The future is indie.